Hello and welcome back to IndustryBroadcast.com for audio article number 78, parts A and B. Today's audio articles were written by Jamie Fristrom. Jamie is the technical director, designer, and partner at Torpex Games. Before Torpex, Jamie was a technical director and designer on Spider-Man 2, where his dynamic, physical swinging system revolutionized the Spider-Man franchise. Other games he's worked on include Spider-Man 1, Tony Hawk, Die by the Sword for the PC, and the Magic Candle series of RPGs. For more on what makes Jamie tick, head over to his blog at www.gamedevblog.com. Audio article number 78, part A, titled The Second Law of Bad Management, written by Jamie Fristrom and read aloud by Ryan Wienko on the 24th of February, 2009. The Second Law of Bad Management. In Tom DeMarco's Slack, Getting Past Burnout, Busy Work, and the Myth of Total Efficiency, he discusses the second law of bad management, which is to put yourself in as your own utility infielder. That is, if you want your project to fail, dive in and do the work yourself instead of overseeing the entire project. I've seen people break this rule frequently, as good programmers and artists get promoted to lead positions with no management training, then dive in and try to do all of the work themselves. Often they're told to do just that from upper management. We're putting you in a management position, but that doesn't mean you can slack off and do no actual work yourself. Not only do they do an inferior job on the area of the project that they're working on, because of the constant interruptions that come with the territory of being a lead, but the rest of the project goes down in flames behind their back. It's the Peter Principle in action. Employees promoted to their level of incompetence. Every now and then we get lucky and promote someone who really can handle a leadership position without training, but most of the time they sink rather than swim. An obvious solution to this situation is to hire managers for their management skill rather than technical skill or artistic aptitude. This solution is wrong. This replaces the Peter Principle with the Scott Adams Dilbert Principle. You frequently end up with managers that nobody respects, or managers who can't call out their team members when they're about to embark upon a stupid course. You need to rewrite the entire engine from scratch? Okay. There's nothing for it. We need to promote experts into management positions, but how do we avoid the Peter Principle? I recently stepped down as technical director on my project because I've always really wanted to be a game designer and had to find a coder to step up to take my place. I looked for these qualities. They didn't have to be the best coder on the team, but they had to be one of the best. For the reasons I mentioned before, they need the respect of the team, and they need to be able to catch unwise decisions before they're made. They had to have the discipline to stay organized. Most of what a lead does is tracking and maintaining the schedule and the bug list. They had to be a good communicator. A lead sets clear goals for their team members or helps them set clear goals for themselves. They had to be a hub, be someone who is used to being interrupted on a regular basis by others on the team. If they are a hub, they're already a lead in practice, if not in title. Also, it's probably the reason that they're a hub is because they have a deep understanding of some important aspects of the game. They're used to being interrupted and putting their own work aside to help somebody else. Finally, since they're already being interrupted so much, they're probably not getting much actual type work done anyways. That last one was supposed to be tongue-in-cheek, of course. They had to want the job, with the understanding that it means doing a lot less coding. My first candidate for the job, Jason Bear, was the guy who had worked with the engine the longest. He held up a cross and said, "Keep your damn dealing with people job away from me." Okay, well, maybe I'm exaggerating. They had to be accepted by the rest of the coding team. Believe it or not, once I arrived with Michael Vance as a candidate and okayed it with the heads of the company, I had a meeting with the coding team and asked them to vote on whether they'd be okay with Michael as their new lead, using Jim McCarthy's Decider protocol, where everybody has a veto. Most approved of the decision and nobody vetoed it. Michael was in. There is an additional measure that can help us avoid the Peter Principle. If Michael screws up or decides the job is too much for him, he can always step back down and I step back in. This gives us a safety net that is not there when a new project is begun and a bunch of people who have never been leads before are moved to run the new endeavor. Finally, there's training. I'm nearby if Michael needs help, and I've given him some advice which boils down to a lot of what I'm writing in this column. And that is, don't put yourself in as your own utility infielder. That is, expect not to get any programming done. I think the rule of thumb for a lead coder should be the amount of time they spend coding is inversely proportional to the size of the coding team. If there's only one other guy on the team, they can spend almost all of their time coding, but it quickly drops off as the number of others increase. Since there's a dozen other coders on your team, Michael isn't scheduled to do any coding at all, although he can pitch in and get a little thing done here and there as the need arises. This means that if there's a system or a module that only you know, you need to hand it off to somebody else. When the system needs work, task that other person, coach them as much as they need so they can be independent, but when you say, damn it, I'll do it myself, you're spending a lot less time leading. There are times where you need to lead by example. There are times where the way you let your team know that you can ford a river is because you've already forded it yourself. But these times are few and far in between, which raises a point. Being a lead sucks. I like to actually work on stuff. I like to write code, which is why I stepped down as the lead. I wanted to get in and do something. I'm thinking that taking turns handling management responsibilities might be a good way to run a long-term project. I don't think it's switching horses in the middle of the race. I think it's more like flying a V of birds, where they take turns at point until one gets worn out and the other moves in to take their place. By the way, the converse of the second rule of bad management isn't true. Just because you don't do any work-type work yourself doesn't necessarily mean that you're a good manager. Part B. This article is from Jamie's Manager in a Strange Land series titled Multiclass Characters. Nope, this isn't an article on RPG design. Allow me to wallow in geekdom for a moment, though. In your typical fantasy RPG, you can play as a fighter, a wizard, or a thief. Some RPGs also allow you to multi-class, play as a fighter/wizard, and so on. You can do the same thing in game development too. You can hire artists/programmers, technical artists. You can hire programmers/designers, gameplay programmers. You can hire game designers/artist, level builders. You have a few of these multi-class characters on the team. Both James Chow and Alex Bortoluzzi are highly technical artists. They know some programming and they know how the engine works well enough to jump through the hoops to actually get new art in the game. Jason Bear, a programmer who owns every game console known to man, makes his game design ideas become flesh. Tomo Miyawaki, who went to school for art, knows 3D Studio Max, knows how to program in our scripting language, and knows games. Matt Rhodes is a writer and a game designer, and me, well, I'm a manager, programmer, and designer. The problem with being a multi-class character, in games as in life, is that you will never be as good in a given field as a specialist. Everybody knows how valuable it is to have specialists. We have several 20th level coders and artists at Triarch. They are devoted to their specialty. These are the people who save the company on a regular basis. Without them, we would be nothing. Still, generalists have their uses. Although in RPGs it's usually a bad idea to play multi-class characters, it's not a bad idea at a game company to have several of them around. For one thing, they don't have to be dependent on other people to get work done. Game assets go through a lot of hands before they're finished. A modeler models them, a texture artist textures them, an animator animates them, designers and programmers script their behavior, and whenever an asset is handed off from person A to person B, one of these annoying things starts to happen. Person B puts down what they're doing so they can work on the new asset. This is multitasking, and it's bad. Person B finishes what they're doing early and sits idle for a while they wait for the asset from person A. The asset languishes while person B finishes what they're doing. Thus, the asset takes longer to get done than necessary. And if there are any problems with it, when person B discovers those problems and bounces the asset back to person A will have already moved on to some other task. I personally prefer the third option, but that's irrelevant right now. My point is, if you have one guy who can handle 2 stages of an operation, there's no downtime or multitasking, with the end result being that the asset becomes ready that much sooner. Another thing about multi-class characters is that they can do the work that needs doing. As a project goes from start to finish, the number of kinds of tasks that needs done changes. If somebody can do programming at the start of the project and then switch to becoming a designer at the end, when the engine is locked down and you need just to add content, you're being more efficient. The third thing about multi-class characters is they become quickly hubs, the go-to guys, partly because they're so productive as soon as they're responsible for a large part of the game, and partly because they understand a large part of the picture more so than specialists, and finally partly because they can communicate between multiple camps. This sets them up to make ideal leaders. In fact, whenever they want to be leaders or not, they'll soon find themselves telling other people what to do, and helping other people get past obstacles. It's no coincidence that Tomo is the creative director, Jason is the lead gameplay programmer, and James and Alex are art leads on the Spider-Man team. If there's a downside to multi-class characters, it's that they quickly become overloaded with things only they can do. Both James and Jason have a list of tasks a mile long. They have become bottlenecks. We need more of them, and we need to find a way to break those tasks down so the specialists can do them. So I've convinced you of the value of these people, have I? The question now is, how do you get them? At Triarch we got lucky. We hired people to fill specialty roles, and it turns out that they had a heck of a lot of other talents as well. But you don't have to rely on luck. And here come my untested theories. You can hire multi-class characters. Other companies do this. At Double Fine, I've seen postings for gameplay programmers, that's programmer/designer, or special effects programmer/artist. At Insomniac, I've seen postings for gameplay programmers. And something that isn't done, but maybe should be, is cross-training. Teach a programmer how to use 3D Studio Max, or send him to art school. Teach an artist how to get around in your scripting language. Send a game designer to management seminars. Cross-training works in manufacturing. Maybe it could work for us. And this concludes today's audio articles, Part A and B. Once again written by Jamie Fristrom, whose blog can be found at www.gamedevblog.com. As always, we recommend that you check back frequently with IndustryBroadcast.com, as we do our very, very best to update the site on a regular basis, bringing the